Poor health is not caused by something you don't have. It's caused by disturbing something that you already have. Healthy is not something that you need to get. It's something that you have already if you don't disturb it. And that was said by Dean Ornish. Welcome to Surviving the Matrix, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Maxwell Igan. It's a pleasure to be with you once again, and I'll be your host for the next hour. Now, this week we've got a show that focuses mainly on health. I've got a guest on the show. It's actually a pre-recorded interview that I did with a friend of mine a week ago. I was actually going to run it last week, but didn't have time to edit it down and get it ready for air. You may hear a little bit of noise in the background. We were sitting down near a creek, and there are a lot of birds in the background as well. Actually, where this was recorded, I don't know if anybody out there has seen the Australian animation called Fern Gully, but where this was recorded was the actual Fern Gully. We were actually sitting in the house where the author of Fern Gully wrote the book, and below us was the river and the gully. And you may hear a little bit of that noise in the background. But it's quite a long interview, folks, so without further ado, I will now switch to the pre-recorded interview. And this is a man called Leonardo Michael, and the discussion is about Candida. Leonardo, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Max. Glad to be here.
So, for the listeners, who is Leonardo Michael, and how did you come up with the procedures that you're using?
Oh, okay. Where do I start? I spent probably the first 20 years of a professional career building entertainment and computer systems in hospitals. I moved it over into the film industry and started making documentaries a little while after that. Most of the information that probably we're going to talk about is on the field research and practical applications of information that we found when we were making a documentary called Eternal Youth.
Okay. Okay, Eternal Youth. That sounds like something everybody wants, mate.
Yeah, so what we did was we started filming international keynote speakers on all different subjects, on physics, on environmental toxins, on energetic healers, and asking them a series of questions in relation to what was the secret to eternal youth and how to get there. What came about was there was like an infinite wealth of information on reducing viruses and parasites and toxins in people's body was the key to longevity and anti-aging, as well as good food, nutrition and healthy relationships.
Well, that helps. What you've found is that most diseases and most ailments that people seem to find in their body are actually related to Candida.
Yeah, that's true, yes. Like systemic Candida is behind like most autoimmune diseases and cancers. The fungus or Candida has the ability to encapsulate toxins, viruses and parasites. It's a defense mechanism that's part of your autoimmune system. The fungus is a necessary part. It catches the virus, the parasite or the toxin and then forms a hard shell, a chitin shell like a crab shell around the fungus encapsulating the toxin. This then requires food. It draws its food from you. It results in the tissue or organ being dominated by the Candida, whether it's in the blood or the organs or wherever it's held in the body. That usually results in a decline in metabolism and absorption of nutrients, which sort of sprouts out into disease and entropy in the body, actually.
So what you're saying is that whenever you get any of these toxins in your body at all, they literally turn into a fungus? Or your body creates a fungus around them or something?
That's correct, yeah, to protect yourself from the toxicity. So the fungus gets to survive by creating a little shell around the outside, which is a chitin cell, like a crab shell.
Okay, and you found like different types of ailments, it's Candida with different types of shells.
Exactly. So there's most of what's in conventional medicine is everybody needs Candida albicans in your stomach. Sounds a little bit out there, but once food's cooked and the enzymes in the food die, your body sees the dead enzymes as poison. So it will produce a fungus or a Candida around that to protect you from the toxicity of it. If you have heavy metals that have been basically inhaled or ingested in some way, and they find their way into your blood, other forms of Candida, Tropi and Raguso and Euglins, form funguses and little shells around the outside, and then they exist in your blood. All these different forms of Candida, are then systemic. They have infiltrated every organ in your body, and basically you're running on fumes. It's getting all the food nutrients that has been absorbed by you, and you're getting what's left over.
Okay, so when you take nutrients into your body, it feeds the Candida first.
Okay, so if the enzymes in the food are dead, radio, or there's too much glucose in there as well, it goes straight to these viruses and parasites and fungus and feeds them. You get the fumes, or what's left over out of that point that still has live enzymes in it, so to speak.
Okay, something you told me the other day, it actually feeds these funguses because your body sees these funguses as necessary to protect itself, doesn't it?
That's exactly right, yeah. It forms a fungus around whatever the toxin is to protect you from its toxicity.
Okay. What happens when someone does something like, perhaps they get a cancer and they go in to see the doctor and the doctor gives them chemotherapy? What happens when someone has an injection of chemo?
Basically, the same thing happens. The toxicity of if you look in all, and most people in the conventional medical industry will agree that systemic Candida, all chemotherapy patients have systemic Candida. So that means that they have Candida in every organ of their body, or every organ of the body that's been infiltrated by toxins. So your body sees the chemo as a poison. It forms another fungus around it immediately, and then a hard chitin shell around that as well. Whether you've used chemotherapy or radiation, your body has the same defense mechanism to create a Candida there. Once the Candida starts dominating the organ, you're not actually dying of cancer, you're dying of systemic Candida. You're not able to absorb any nutrients. It's taking all the nutrients from you. So the organ basically just fails as a result of an inability to absorb nutrients in the end.
Right, so this is why you'd have cancer patients with their hair falling out and all this sort of stuff. It isn't actually from the chemo, it's from the Candida.
Yeah. What happens is fungus becomes Candida, the Candida becomes cancer. It's not a different species, it's just an evolvement of whatever it is. Once the Candida that's in the organ has basically dominated or overpowered that organ, you've got cancer there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've developed a series of diets and things that you're putting people on. Do you want to talk about them a little bit?
Yeah. Okay, so
I mentioned this on a show actually a couple of weeks ago, and I had a lot of people saying, "Oh no, sugar-free diets," and they're telling me I need to look at the bigger picture, and fruit sugars are all good, and all this sort of stuff. And I just said, well, I'll be having the guy on the show soon, so I'll get him to explain it. So
yeah, in the course of the little journey that we've been on and trying to get success with late-stage cancer patients and autoimmune diseases, the key factor in people are fragile at that stage, and they have a lot of fungus, a lot of Candida, a lot of viruses and parasites in their body. So one way to get them to basically get well is to starve all the viruses and parasites of what they want the most, which is sugar. Okay, so no fruit, no starch, no grains. Okay, you can have as much meat as you like, right, and as much raw vegetables with live enzymes as you possibly can. The point of this being is that the live enzymes feed your body and nurture your body. Your body can absorb them appropriately. The sugar makes your pancreas excrete the insulin too fast, and it basically feeds the viruses and parasites that are in your body. Starving them of what they want the most, which is sugar and basically fructose or fruit sugar as well, will decrease the population as a whole as they all die off in your body. As most of these acidic pathogens die off, what happens is the tissue heals up, you become more alkaline, your immune system switches on. While your body is using basically sugar as a source of nutrients, what happens, and the viruses and parasites are quite dominant in the body, your body pH drops under 6.5 as a whole. At that point, 90-95% of your immune system has switched off. Okay, so killing these viruses, parasites, and fungus off in your body will alkalize it as a result. As you alkalize and your body pH increases and goes back over 7, your autoimmune system switches back on. Okay, so when this happens, like cancer and autoimmune diseases don't exist in alkaline bodies. That's the bottom line. So if you haven't got acidic pathogens and you haven't got systemic candida throughout the body, chances are your autoimmune disease or whatever cancer you have will basically reduce or dissolve itself.
Okay, so you've got no problem with people eating meat, obviously. You're saying as much meat as you like?
Well, I'm a firm believer in this. We're omnivores, so we eat fruit and vegetables and we eat meat. We come into this world with a hydrochloric acid-based stomach, which is designed to break down meat proteins. If we were designed to just eat fruit and vegetables, we'd have 4 stomachs like a cow and a bacterial-based digestive system.
Okay, so when you're eating meat, though, you're eating organic meat. You're not eating meat from the butcher shop.
No. So the problem with meat is basically just the source. It's very high up the food chain, so it is exposed to environmental toxins and different chemicals that people in those industries use. If you can find pure sources for your meat and you have a healthy gut, which means that the Candida albicans in your stomach is at a safe level, you haven't got many toxins in your stomach, and you have enough hydrochloric acid to break down the meat, you can break down the meat just as quickly as you're breaking down broccoli or carrots, etc. See, a lot of people argue that they have too much stomach acid. What happens is most people have got too much Candida in their gut and very little stomach acid. That's why they say it takes so long to break down meat. If you rid your body of most of the unnecessary fungus, candida, viruses and parasites, and you have enough stomach acid, you also then have the ability to break down meat as protein and absorb all the nutrients from it at an amazing rate that will give you plenty of energy and vitality.
Okay, so what would you consider to be a perfect diet for someone to battle the candidas in their body? Or have you got different diets for different candidas?
As much raw vegetables, and it's not a lot of meat each day, but as much organic, clean meat protein as you can possibly get would be my suggestion. What we do is try to eliminate all sugars from the diet. So we try to eliminate all fruit, processed sources of sugar, starch, grains, no bread at all. These things people struggle with a little bit, and fruit mostly, because most people have been hypnotized into thinking that fruit is good. But when you look at results on getting people well, the only thing sometimes that tips the scales is they started eating fruit. They started feeding the viruses and parasites that are in their body, and then the population increased and their unwellness returned. If they could stay sugar-free for a little longer, then chances are that they'll stay well for a longer period of time. My suggestion, and the way that I've probably been since we've sort of discovered this protocol, is to basically have a small portion of meat in each meal, really good probiotic at some stage during the day, whether it be a kefir yogurt or sauerkraut or whatever the source is, just to include that and have a balanced meal at every meal. If you're unwell, raw vegetables is probably what you do for the first 6 to 8 weeks of the protocol. After that, when all the different funguses start to come into line and your body starts to re-establish a homeostasis or balance, then you can probably be a little bit more adventurous with your food. You don't really need to stick to the dietary protocol forever. Like it's boring. People get sick of being regimentally stuck to a protocol for a long period of time.
Yeah, well, you'd really only need to have a strict diet while you're eliminating the candida. And after that, if you maintain a certain level of health, well, you should stay relatively clean. And you only have to go back to one of these diets if you start developing candida again. Are you aware of things such as histones? Like things such as phylogenetic memory, DNA memory stuff, and the way this is locked down by funguses in our body? Yeah. You want to speak about that a little bit? Because what you're saying...
I'll go off on a tangent, I think.
No, that's okay. That's okay, because The thing is, like a lot of the work that I do when I talk about consciousness, I talk about how we're locked down and shut out from our higher senses because we're only really operating at 3% of our capability.
Yeah.
And a lot of these genetic codes, through my research, I'm finding that fungus helps lock all this down. It helps disconnect us from the earth, disconnect us from the energy field around us. So when you really look at this, and you look at how all the food that we buy, all the processed food, everything you buy from the supermarket, it's all got sugar in it. Everything's got sugar in it. Anything prepackaged has got sugar in it. And I'm suggesting that this sugar's put there specifically to feed these funguses, to lock down these histones, to keep you disconnected. I just see a bigger picture. Maybe I'm just a conspiracy theorist, but...
I completely agree with you on that. I've seen different scientific research that we've done just on patients, and what seems to happen is the dull down in awareness caused by high levels of virus, parasites and candida keeps you out of universal intelligence. So an example of that, for instance, would be if you ingest a lot of lead or platinum from basically just living in the city, as you inhale the substance like fungus, and then candida forms basically around the base of your brainstem, like a little vine, like a little rope going. But what happens is it's taking the nutrients, it's taking the energy, and in a sense taking your attention away from thought form. So you're being dulled down as a result of it interfering with the process.
So what you're saying here is, like, different substances such as lead, you could inhale lead from exhaust fumes in cities, and this will form a certain type of candida, a certain type of fungus, which will lodge itself in your brainstem.
Exactly.
And so all of this is related to funguses. All the toxins that we inhale, whether it be lead or barium or strontium or the stuff out of the chemtrails, the way they affect our body is specifically through fungal growths and different types of candida, all of it.
Yeah, exactly. Where you're going as well with that, I think, Max, is that when the fungus forms, what happens is the fungus is what dulls down your awareness.
Yeah.
As the fungus dies off and the toxins removed, what we've seen people really seem to wake up. People really seem to get switched on, and their awareness wakes up. What was dulling them down? Chemtrails, lead, barium, etc. When they're removed from the centre of the candida or the fungus, people switch on. But people that are exposed to all these things seem to be dulled down constantly.
Yeah, but it's the fungal growths that are doing it.
That's
so this is a whole different way of looking at things, because when you look at the toxic substances that we ingest, and we all think, it's the aluminium, or it's the lead, but really it's the fungal growth that lead creates, because it's a different type of fungus. They're all different types of funguses, all different types of shells, all different types of candidas.
Correct.
Yeah, this is a whole different way of looking at how toxins affect the body.
Yeah.
And really, when you look at it this way, you can see why there'd be sugar in all the food, and you can see how easy it would be, really, to free yourself from all this through diet.
Yeah. But I've seen people really, aside from getting over autoimmune diseases and cancers, etc., I've seen people really take quantum leaps in their spiritual involvement, primarily because the toxins are gone, the funguses are gone, and they're awake.
And it's interesting as well, because if you go into mainstream medicine and they start giving you synthetic tablets to treat these toxins, because you've got barium poison, they give you a tablet, and the tablet would be a toxin which would form a new fungus, and you get more lockdown. It might take the symptoms away, and you start feeling okay again, but you're more and more shut off, and then the sugar just keeps feeding it all. So people must have literally thousands of different types of candida in their body, just from our environment and the food that we consume.
Exactly correct. So you can look at, like, where is that going? Is that like a deliberate way of keeping everyone under control?
What do you think? Well, yeah.
It seems to work.
It works very well, extremely well. So you've also developed a substance, like a medicine, if you will. You want to talk about that a little bit? Okay, then. Yeah. So
that's what's going on. The body. Okay. So we get to that point. You're full of toxins, or you've gone into you've got a different disease, or as a result of the candida overpowering the organs or dominating the organs. How do you get it out? What you need to do is to kill off all the fungus and then remove the toxins or the virus and parasite that's bound inside the fungus. Okay, so how you go about doing that is you have what is called a chitin synthesis inhibitor. It stops the shell forming around the fungus. Or if the shell has formed around the fungus, it will dissolve the shell around the fungus. So basically you have a tablet, a 700 milligram tablet of Lufenuron, which is a brand of its Candida release. You have the tablet with 10 grams of fat. It binds with the fat then as a lipoprobic in your body and then starts to circulate. You load up on the tablets for 5 days, and then you let the substance work for the next 10 days, taking the shell off all the Candida. As the shell comes off the Candida, your autoimmune system will attack the fungus. If you have zeolite or use MMS and citric acid to piggyback or boost your immune system at the same time, you're removing the need for the fungus or Candida to be there in the first place by removing the toxin from the inside. So the zeolite will capture the toxin that's inside, whether it will also capture the toxin, whether it's chemotherapy, radiation, whether it's a heavy metal. It will basically expose the fungus to your immune system, then can attack the fungus that's in there. The fungus, if it's in an organ, will then fall out of the organ completely. It will die off. The necessity for it being there doesn't exist anymore. The toxin's been removed at the same time. The organ will heal up. All the spaces where the fungus had its roots in there, like it was growing like a little tree out of the side of the organ, will then heal up over the next maybe 20 to 30 days. You've forced your body into a state of repair, so you'll have brand new tissue with nothing feeding off it then. The fungus doesn't require any sugar or glucose or nutrients from you. The organ's in perfect shape. It probably hasn't been like that since you were 3 or 4. So as this medicine starts circulating throughout your body, you're moving all the toxins at a very fast rate. Over 35 days, you can kill off so much fungus and bring your body back, and your gut will start absorbing nutrients properly. Most people's skin clears up straight away. I've seen people with eczema, it clears up in 3 or 4 days. Primarily because your body is actually getting all the nutrients through. You're not feeding the viruses and parasites that are in your body anymore, and you're absorbing.
And that's just through this substance, what's it called?
Called Lufenuron.
Lufenuron, and you're piggybacking other things on it. So it isn't like a cure-all or a medicine in itself. It's simply something that breaks down the shell.
That's it. It exposes the fungus to your immune system, and then we use other products to remove the toxin that's inside the fungus from your body completely.
Okay. Such as zeolite.
Such as zeolite, and what's usually happened when people get to this state is most of their immune system is switched off. So as you take the shell off the Candida, what happens is your immune system has to attack it. So we use MMS sometimes transdermally, like you have it in the bath. And it's absorbed through your skin to piggyback your own immune system to kill off some of the viruses and parasites that were bound inside the fungus.
Okay, how much would you have in a bath if you would put MMS in a bath?
In a bath, to be effective, you probably really need between 300 and 500 drops, depending on the level of water.
Okay.
Depending on,
Okay, so that's really interesting. This is a whole new way of looking at medicine. Really, it's a whole new way of looking at repairing your body. So what about the people that are out there and they're saying, through fruitarian diets and all this sort of stuff, you can cure things, and what do you have to say to people like this?
Well, there's level of human, what would you say, efficiency. Okay. Are these people really healthy?
Well, the thing is, I suppose, what they're doing is they're still approaching it from the outside in.
Yeah.
They're sort of not getting into the inside of it and clearing out the diseases. Once you've got your diseases clear, a fruit diet would probably be quite good for you, but you've got to get these candidas and funguses out first. Otherwise, the sugar in the fruit's just feeding them. Now, if you don't know they're there, how are you going to be dealing with it? Exactly. You've got to know they're there and find a way through. So that seems to be what you've done with this treatment.
Yeah. Well, basically, all we're trying to do is we're trying to get your metabolic age back to that of how you came in, like a 2 or 3 year old. So your body's absorbing nutrients before, you've been vaccinated. the vaccinations is another story. I won't go off there, but
you could if you want to. I mean, people probably need to hear it. I mean, vaccinations are terrible. I think they set up genetic environments that they're using. I think it's a whole big test, a whole big experiment going on. They don't really know what they're coming up with.
Yeah.
But it's almost like there's something they're trying to reverse engineer life on this planet, figure out how it all works, and they don't really know what they're doing. They're just messing with it,
Yeah. I think you're right, Max. You're completely on track there.
But what were you going to say?
What I'm saying is that going through this process helps in plenty of different ways. Like you feel physically well, you're absorbing the food that you're eating. The other thing we can go into is the cravings. When you kill off a lot of the fungus and candida that's in your body, do you really want a beer? Do you really want sugar? Or is it speaking through your subconscious and getting you to do it? Because it's dominating most of your organs.
Exactly. If you've got a parasite in your body, then the parasite's going to make you crave what the parasite wants.
Exactly.
That's the way it works, absolutely.
Yeah. So your existence here, like are you here just to feed the viruses, parasites and fungus in your body, or do you want to be in charge of the whole show? So what I've really noticed is a consciousness shift in people, because there's, at a certain level, when the fungus and candida and the parasites die off down to a certain level, people have this day where they go, I'm not just reacting to picking up food anymore. I'm not drawn to just like pulling over in the car and going, oh, I need a beer. What's getting it? Is the fungus telling me to pull over and get a beer because it wants a beer? Am I just here to exist for the consciousness of these parasites and fungus within me? So when they have that moment, they usually go like, really, I'm not feeding these guys anymore. They change their diet, and then a lot of the dietary choices are really simple. They're really easy for them because they want to stay in charge of their journey. They want to stay in charge of their life direction, etc. And that is simply by the organs not being dominated by acidic pathogens and fungus.
You've had people going through massive mood swings on these diets as well, haven't you? Like getting quite angry and stuff. You say it's the fungus getting angry. Where's my food,
Exactly. So, like, everything in your body has a consciousness. Like, the fungus has a consciousness. And it has a necessity to survive. It has a survival instinct in there. So, when it feels like the population of it is dying off, it doesn't like it, you know what I mean? It's having a good journey with you. You're carrying this guy around. He's getting all the food he wants. When it starts going off, like, it starts making you feel angry. Like, it says you should have some bread, you should have a beer, you should do all that sort of stuff. And it's fighting to survive. So there's another realization that sometimes on this journey that people go, well, like, that anger that's coming out, why is it coming out? It's just the consciousness of the fungus.
Yeah.
It dies down to a certain level. That guy's not there anymore.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
We'll have a break.
All right.
And that concludes part one, folks. We're going to have a break now, and we'll be back in a few minutes with part two. Thanks for listening.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here talking with Leonardo Michael, and we are discussing different types of candida and different types of illnesses and how most of these illnesses can be related to candida and traced to candida and traced to fungal growths that people get in their body. It's really a whole new way of looking at illness and how things affect the body. Actually, how can someone do a test to find out if they have any type of these candidas?
Okay, well, basically a test that you can just do at home is you can just get a glass of water and a little bit of spit that goes into the water. If legs or tentacles, like what you'd see on a jellyfish, develop, it's saying that you've got too much Candida albicans in your stomach, and more than likely, if that's the case, there's other forms of Candida augusto, and utolens that's in your body. That's an inexpensive test that can be done at home. Doctors don't test for Candida. There's not a lot of belief that it is the primary source behind most disease. There is a few doctors. There's Tullio Simoncini, an Italian doctor who treats a lot of candida with IV vitamin C and IV sodium bicarb. He believes that candida is the source of all cancer. He's been ridiculed, gone through basically the ringer over there on being deregistered as a doctor, etc. sometimes these new ideas or concepts, the reason behind them being violently opposed or ridiculed, etc., is it interferes with a lot of pharmaceutical drugs.
Of course.
And it interferes with a lot of people's careers too. Like if you're treating fungus with simple compounds that will inhibit breast cancer, you've stopped all the mastectomies. That's a big industry to interfere with. You're not going to come up against like a lot of love in the medical industry. Like if you start talking that sort of stuff, a lot of these guys don't want to hear it.
Yeah, they don't want. They're not really interested in cures. I mean, look at what happened to Royal Rife back in the 1930s. Royal Rife invented the microscope where he could actually see living viruses, and they had a party. I think they had a dinner to celebrate the end of all diseases in 1934.
Yeah.
And I believe he died in jail.
Yeah.
So that's what they do. It's a big threat to the medical industry actually finding cures for things. They much prefer to find treatments. What sort of a response have you had when you tried to present this information to doctors?
I've actually had some doctors that they don't want to know about it. They want to hear about it. They just think it's unproved science and it's too risky for them to get involved with. I have run this protocol with a couple of environmental nutritional doctors that have basically given me their incurable patients, late-stage cancer patients, or their throwaway patients at the start. I had from one doctor going like, I've got nothing left I can do with this guy with bone cancer. Have a go at it. He cared about him, but didn't have anywhere else to go. He'd tried chemo, they'd tried radiation, he had IV vitamins, and none of it seemed to work. So this is probably the best late-stage result that we had was he's had bone cancer and been given less than a couple of weeks to live. We did struggle with him a little bit because he loved sugar. He loved eating out at restaurants and didn't change anything in his diet the whole time that he was following the conventional medical protocol. We took him off all sugar altogether. So he didn't have any fruit, no starch potatoes, all that. He stuck to the paleo diet completely. I started him on Lufenuron, MMS baths, and zeolite. Within 3 weeks, he came to me, his eyes were bright yellow. The whites of his eyes were like fluorescent. He shuffled in, he could hardly move. He sat on the couch and started crying. Within 3 weeks, he could walk around properly. He came back, we sent him back to the doctor. His kidney function had gone back to 65%. He was absorbing nutrients. All his blood results had come back to a relatively normal, and the cancer was regressing. That's probably the best result that we've had. The best result from the latest stage patient that we've had.
That's a pretty good result.
Yeah, his family was surprised, and the doctor that gave me the referral as well, he was just shocked. He didn't think there was any hope for him as well, but he did think outside the box. He understood the concept of where it was going, and he embraced it and did it on himself as well. Guys like him, they're out there, there aren't a lot that will push your phone number across the table to someone and say, here it is, have a go at this. There's all the reasons in the world for them not to do it. Like you could wreck your career, you could malpractice, etc., etc. So,
yeah, but some of them just get to a certain point where they're listening to you and it all makes sense, and then the door just shuts. Yeah. They just won't listen past a certain point. What's going on there, brother?
I've got a take on that. I'll share it with you if you like.
Absolutely.
Okay. So what I think, like a lot of the reason for non-acceptance, you've got all the obvious reasons. You can ruin your career. You can you go to jail for stepping outside conventional protocols, etc. But then sometimes a lot of these guys are intelligent, you know what I mean? They can understand broad new concepts in science, etc. But if you've, say, lived in a city, you've had a high sugar diet, and you've got a head full of heavy metals, etc., more than likely you've got like a fungus-like rope entwined around the base of your brainstem. It's dulled down your awareness, and your ability to absorb or accept new information just isn't there. So the gate's shut. You're not getting through them on any front.
The fungus is intelligent enough to know that it doesn't want you to hear any information that might wipe it out.
And that's it. And this guy, they've kept this guy in the game for him. So that, like I see it like that. And
that's an interesting take on it. What about someone who's got something like fibromyalgia? How could they use this to treat that?
Okay. What's more than likely happening is the fibromyalgia is probably caused by either they've got a high heavy metal reading, or they have a fungus, or one of the candidas dominating their body. So they could have too much candida tropy in their blood or euglins in their blood, so that's protecting them from a heavy metal, but it's also taking all the nutrients from them at the same time. The fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue or whatever disease they've got that's taking all their energy, they have no energy because their absorption's not there, they're not absorbing nutrients, the nutrients aren't getting through and producing energy for them, so they're flat. You kill the fungus off, you get rid of the viruses and bacteria and remove the heavy metals from them, the disorder or the entropy that's caused by all these things crashing into each other in your body goes away. Homeostasis is returned, everything starts talking. You're absorbing food, your autoimmune system's not overloaded trying to constantly rid yourself of all these things. It's got an easy job. Your body's alkaline and you come good.
What about things like various cancers? What about like lung problems, things like that? A lot of people have got lung problems in the world today from smoking or from just the polluted environments that we live in. Are these related to candidas as well?
Yeah. Okay, so more than likely, most of the population, this is my take on it, a lot of the population has systemic candida. If you've been a smoker, the toxins that are inhaled cause more fungus, more candida forms around them, and your body spends all its time trying to tackle these things. If it starts to dominate the organ, the fungus becomes cancer, the cancer takes over the organ. Okay, if you kill this stuff off, what happens is it dies off and leaves the organ. Your body has an amazing capability of regenerating. Like you take away the contaminant, you take away the virus, the acidic pathogen, or whatever the contaminant it is, it regrows. Same as it did when you were 3.
So you're talking about virtually reversing entropy that you've done to your lungs from smoking and all this sort of stuff. People can do this by removing their body of candida.
You're on it, Max?
So tell me about fluoride.
Okay, so I'm not really a big fan of fluoride, Max.
Why not, brother? It's wonderful stuff, isn't it? It's good for your teeth.
Yeah, you could say that. Maybe it's like another little arguable point, but fluoride basically is leftover waste, industrial waste, that they had to do something with. So someone came out with a bright idea that it makes your teeth stronger, etc., etc. But what they probably failed to tell you is that when something like that goes into your body identifies it as a toxin instantly, forms another fungus around it to protect you from that, and has to store it in the tissue wherever it sits. Because you're ingesting it in water, basically it's flushing through every organ that's in your body. Your body's having to produce different funguses to protect you from that, and then it's sitting there as a contaminant. It starts dissolving the calcium that's in your bones. It sits over in the tissue in your bones, and my understanding is it pulls the calcium from your bones like a magnet over next to it, causing more entropy within the cells and more disorder at the same time. All this at a systemic level, because you're ingesting it all day long if you're drinking tap water, starts dulling down awareness pretty quickly. Okay, so you've got another little case here of like large-scale dulling down of a population's awareness through using a contaminant to create more fungus, which will basically make a more controllable audience. People that are not getting involved in that anymore, like it causes a range of diseases that like nobody probably wants to admit to. But at the same time, people are opposing it, like starting to oppose it in large amounts at the moment. Why? They can see the negative effect that it's having on their health. If you have clean, toxin-free, alkaline water all the time, your health gets better just like on that, quite quickly. If you look at tap water, that most of the tap water that you'll find in Australia, you'll have between 135 parts per million and 200. In Adelaide, I think it's as bad as 225 parts per million. That's heavy, heavy doses of fluoride that are in the water. You get some creek water that's in a creek in Australia, you'll have like 36 parts per million of good stuff. So what you need to be doing is like we're an upright walking column of seawater. Okay, so water's a major part of us. You need to be putting in really clean water without any fluoride in it at all. I think in a sense it's like people can go, it's a naive understanding, it's financial gain, but like actually doing it's not really cool, I don't think.
Oh, it's criminal.
I agree completely.
So, okay, so you've done the test, you've spat in the jar, you're finding little tentacles there, you're going, okay, I've got this stuff in me.
Yeah.
What do you do now? What are the steps to get back to where you should be?
Okay, so that form of Candida is saying that you have too much fungus in your gut. And because that's there, you're not absorbing any nutrients. Okay, so you've got to get that to die off without using any medicine or any other ingredients. To do it naturally, what you've got to do is remove all the sugar from your diet altogether. So no fruit, no grains, no starch, okay, raw veggies and meat. That would be the easiest way. Once your gut rebuilds and you start absorbing nutrients again, a lot of these little symptoms just go away by themselves. The pharmaceuticals are unnecessary. You don't need antibiotics. You know, you've got enough good bacteria in your gut to protect you. You know.
Okay, what's this substance you were talking about before? To take, where does that fit in? Because even if you start removing sugar from your diet, it's not just going to break down all these shells that are around all these funguses in your body. So what's this substance that you're talking about to break down these shells? And like you had that treatment where you could take this stuff, then you boost your immune system with the MMS, and it has the effect of basically clearing it all out. So how do we get onto this and do this? Okay,
so to kill off all the fungus in your body, there's a product called Candida Release. The main ingredient is Lufenuron. Lufenuron is what's called a chitin synthesis inhibitor. It stops a shell forming around the fungus.
Okay.
So in all these cases, it's already got to that stage. The Candida is there, it's in your blood or it's in the organ or wherever it is. You have this, a tablet, it's basically like any other tablet, it's just in a capsule form. With the tablet, you have 10 grams of fat. The Lufenuron will bind to the fat, and then it will bind to the fat that's in your body. It slowly releases itself over the next 21 days, dissolving the shell that is around the fungus. Okay. So when that shell is dissolved, what will happen is your autoimmune system will instantly attack the fungus. There's a toxin inside the fungus. More than likely there's a heavy metal in there, or there's like a virus and parasites. Lyme's disease, there'll be a parasite inside that fungus. If you are on MMS and zeolite at the same time, the MMS will piggyback your immune system and attack that acidic pathogen that's inside the fungus while it's being exposed. It's like a point of kill. You've got an opportunity to get it then. Same with removing the toxin. When your immune system attacks the fungus, the heavy metal that's inside there, that's when the zeolite can grab it. It can grab that toxin, put it in its little cage, and you can eliminate it from your body altogether. The fungus has no need to be in your body anymore, okay? The hole that's in the organ where the fungus was infiltrating or living or feeding off you will heal up, okay? Then it doesn't have anything feeding off anymore. So what happens then is the nutrients that are going through or filtering through that organ or body system then are absorbing all that food. What happens is it comes back to life. You start alkalizing, right? The less of these guys in the body, the more alkaline you are. They're all acidic. Okay, the more alkaline you are, the higher you get as a whole over 7, the more of your autoimmune system will switch on. When that does switch on, what happens is you don't need anything to piggyback you anymore. You've got 90 to 100% of your autoimmune system on. It can tackle all these things. You can go out there in the environment and basically be exposed to different viruses and parasites, and you're healthy enough to tackle the whole thing without any aid from anything outside of yourself.
Okay, so where can people get hold of these substances to do all this?
Using Lufenuron by itself is amazing, but if you're going to go on that protocol and do the diet and go through the whole process, doing the whole protocol with MMS and zeolite at the same time puts you miles ahead. And if you're going to go on that journey, you might as well do the whole thing. You'll have amazing success.
Yeah, have you had anyone that you haven't had any success with this? And what sort of testimonies are you getting from people?
A lot of people that sort of have a holistic approach to their health, they get 3/4 of the way. they're doing everything right. They're going through these really intricate protocols on getting all their diet right and all that sort of stuff. But you can't kill the parasites that are bound inside this chitin shell by diet. It won't die off simply like that. The toxins won't be removed from the center of the cell. So they can go back to quite a good, effective, healthy life, but you can always go better. If you detox your body back to the point that your metabolic age is that of a 2 or 3 year old, and you're absorbing nutrients and growing at that sort of rate, your day's amazing. Your emotional state's amazing as well. All these things are simply achievable. I've had people with rashes head to toe. They've done everything that there is. They've been on every antibiotic, they've been on every different thing. They've even used MMS as well in bars, but you need to go a little bit further than that. So you can apply it to basically a lot of different, what they'd say are only symptomatically treatable diseases, and get decent results very quickly as well. Like, I've had people that are 60 that have had eczema since the day they were born. It goes within 4 days. And they're just like blown away by how easy it could have been.
Yeah. Because some people say like MMS is supposed to attack these shells as well, but it really doesn't. MMS is more of attacking the toxin inside the shell, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, MMS basically moves in next to acidic pathogens. So it parks itself next to it and it steals 4 electrons from the cell. The acidic pathogen, it only attacks pathogens that have a pH of less than 7. So you're not killing any alkaline pathogens, you're only killing acidic pathogens. So it steals its energy and it dies, turns to salt, and then your body excretes it. It's effective, but it won't penetrate the chitin shell. It will kill acidic pathogens that don't have a fungus shell on the outside of them. Okay. But the combination of the two, see, you can become quite alkaline very quickly if you use MMS to kill off these pathogens, and then you kill off the fungus and the acidic pathogens that are inside. The new cells that are created are alkaline. You've got brand new, fresh human tissue with nothing feeding off it that has the ability to absorb all its nutrients, because there's no virus pathogen population feeding off the tissue. It is a quick process. People do get well in short spaces of time.
Okay, and you've had, how many people do you think you've treated? How many successes have you had with this sort of treatment? It's
in the thousands at the moment. Like, when we first applied this protocol, when we were making the film, we tripped over it by accident. Like, a nuclear physicist had the idea, that was one of the participants in the film. He said, play it out. We embraced it on a cancer patient. It worked. She came good. What we actually did was we validated the results by thermography scan, ultrasound, blood tests, and we used a technology called Indigo, which is a bioresonance feedback, which was an effective tool in this. And if we go back to how to test for Candida as well, you can use that machine, or what's called a life system, to go and get tested. It will give you every toxin, every virus, every bacteria, every contaminant that you do have in your body. It will give you every level of every fungus and a reading as to whether that's a safe level or not. After going through this protocol, what you can do, probably in the most inexpensive sense, is use those systems again. That they're cheap ways of getting data results back that give you inspiration to keep going. As a result, you can see that your disease or...
So you could go and get tested and then go on one of these protocols and then go and test yourself again to see how effective it was.
See if it's true.
I'd say that you probably know it was true because of the change in your emotional state and your general well-being, though.
Oh, that's the bottom line, my friend.
Yeah. Well, we got about 1 or 2 minutes left. So, what's something that you'd really like to leave the listeners with?
What I think is, like, I like to see people get well. I don't like seeing people waste their money on drugs and unnecessary treatments, or going into things that sometimes are a bad idea that's gone on for 80 years. There's a lot of that going on in the medical industry, and you have a little bit of faith in trying something that's not toxic. You're not going to get hurt on it. If someone says, don't eat fruit for a couple of weeks, see where it goes. Like, embrace that journey. If you're feeling so much better within a short space of time, then, like, you're getting somewhere quickly. You know, like, stay away from pharmaceutical drugs. They're no good for anyone. Like, they're a bad invention that should have been shut down a long time ago.
Well, as we said earlier, I mean, they're just more toxins. When you really understand how this works, when you realise that when you're putting toxins in your body, these fungal growths are forming around them and these chitin shells, and then you're putting more toxins in your body to treat them, all they're doing is turning into new funguses. Yeah. Whether they take away the symptoms or not, they're still leaving these funguses and candidas rampant in your body. I mean, with our diets and societies we live in, most people have probably got thousands of different types in their body already.
Stay away from pharmaceuticals. Like, the whole idea of side effect is not true. It's direct effect. The side effect is just as damaging as the intended effect. The only thing that actually probably saves you from that is that you've read there that it's less harmful than the intended effect, and your subconscious has gone, okay then, I won't have these symptoms, they only might happen. More than likely, the only thing that saves yourself is your own belief that that might not be true.
Yeah.
That might be true, sorry.
No, that's a very good point. Mate, pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
I'll have to have you on again. We'll do some studies around here. I'm going to go on this diet myself and see what happens. Hey, you know, it'd be good to see. So I'll be a case study for you.
Okay.
Pleasure to have you on, brother. We'll talk again soon.
Yeah, you'll be an awesome work in progress.
Okay, bye-bye.
I'll see ya.
And that concludes the interview, folks. Very interesting fellow and a very interesting diet. I actually do intend to go on this diet and to start using Lufenuron and just see how it goes. And I'll be a case study for you folks, and we'll document it and post it online so that you can join me on the journey and we'll see how this goes. I certainly haven't been feeling the healthiest of lately. A little bit of personal neglect, I would say, or possibly a culmination of years of neglect that's leapfrogged over itself. I have been trying to look after myself in the last few years, but it gets a little bit hard sometimes because I get so busy with work and I end up forgetting to eat for days at a time and just sort of snack now and then. Because I've always been a little bit lax in that department, eating's always been somewhat of a hassle for me. It's not something that I enjoy doing. Well, maybe eating isn't so bad, but I don't really enjoy the preparation of the food, I guess. And when you live on your own, it gets a little bit boring preparing food for one. And actually, folks, for those who would like a little bit more information on this, I have put a link to the ebook Candida Release on the homepage at thecrowhouse.com. And no, folks, it's not advertising. I just thought I would put it there for those who were interested in looking a little bit more into this. But I will go on the diet. That will give me something to do. I'm still not sure about whether I'll be going to Syria at the end of the month. I have received an invitation to speak there, and I have received a confirmation that I will be speaking there, but I haven't yet received a ticket to get there. And as the situation is worsening, I'll just play that by ear. One good thing, though, that I'm happy to bring to the audience is that I won't be going to Dallas to a gaming convention with my son. He's decided that he doesn't want to go there anymore, which is really, really wonderful news. Hopefully he has seen the error of his ways and is going to lay back on the gaming a little bit, which would be a wonderful thing to see. That's the thing with kids these days, folks. They're very, very locked into a gamer's mentality. A lot of them are anyway. My son, for one, is certainly locked into this gaming mentality. And I had promised him anything he wanted for his 21st, and that's what he wanted. But now he's changed his mind, so that is great. The last thing I really wanted to do was go to Dallas and go to a gaming convention, folks, because I was also very much wondering how on earth I was going to afford it. I was thinking that it might be time to sell my car and maybe a few other odds and ends I have around the place just to raise the money to get him over there to live up to the promise that I made. But, as I said, it would appear that now he has changed his mind, and that's a very good thing. But that is it for me for the day, folks. It's been a pleasure speaking to you again. And actually, it's Saturday here, folks, as I do the show. I know it's Friday in the United States, but it's Saturday afternoon here for me. And this afternoon, I will be going offline, and I probably won't be back online again until next Thursday. So I'm not going to be available for comment or for emails or for messages or anything like that for the next 5 days. I will be starting this Lufenuron program this week, and I will keep you posted on that, and I'll look forward to speaking to you again next week. Please take good care until then. In Lakesh.